Workshop for the Battle Creek City Commission. Today's date is February 10th, 2022. We're in our City Hall Commission chambers with this workshop. I'd like to call to order the meeting, and if we could do introductions, each commissioner just introduce yourself so that everyone knows who you are. I'm Mark Banky, a City Commissioner and Mayor of Battle Creek. Vice Mayor, could you go next?
Vice Mayor Katie Ferris. I'm a Ward 2 resident, but I serve at large.
Jim Lance, I'm Ward 5 Commissioner.
Commissioner Reynolds, Commissioner at large.
Sherry Sophia, Commissioner at large. I live in Ward 3.
Kathy Zenda Wilson, Ward 4 Commissioner.
Bonica Herring, Ward 3 Commissioner.
Everyone knows our city manager, but I'll ask her to introduce herself along with Ted Deering and our finance director, and then finally our city clerk.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Fleury. I'm the city manager.
I'm Ted Deering. I'm the assistant city manager.
And I'm Linda Morrison. I'm the finance director.
I'm Vicki Hauser, city clerk.
And Commissioner Morris, if you could just introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Janasia Morris. I'm Ward 2 City Commissioner.
Thank you very much, everyone, and welcome. Next item on our agenda is public comment. However, we've asked those that are applying for the grants through the federal government not to speak, although you have a right to. We strongly encourage you not to, because if one of you do it, everyone's going to want to get up and do it. And we would like to be as fair and cognizant of the time allowed for this meeting. So, is there anyone that would like to make public comment at this time? Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Seeing none, thank you very much. I will now turn the meeting over to Rebecca and Ted and to Linda, who will give us an idea of how we're going to operate and get out of here on time. I think that's very important. I have an event to attend at 8:15 called the Great Lakes Ice Cream and Trade Show.
Ooh.
And my wife has asked for some ice cream, so if we could all work together to get out on a timely basis, it would be very nice. Rebecca, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here this evening. This has been quite an adventure for the city of Battle Creek. You know, we're not usually in this position, and we've never used these funds like this before. And it's taken us a long time to get here, so we're very excited, and thank you for being here tonight. What we're going to preserve the first about 90 minutes is for commissioners to ask applicants questions. They all have your proposals. They have your supplemental information. They have gone through the rubric scoring, but we wanted to give the commissioners a chance to be able to ask applicant questions that they may have. We'll try to do this in an orderly fashion. However, I know that I have at least one applicant that if there are questions for the music center, if we could do that first because they have to leave. And so I'm going to turn this back over to the commission and ask if any of you have questions for the Music Center regarding their application.
Okay, but first I'm going to allow Ward 1 Commissioner to introduce herself. Kristen, everyone, we went around, and so everyone in the public will know who you are. We'd just like to ask you to introduce yourself.
Yes, I am Kristen Blood. I'm Ward 1 Commissioner, and my apologies for being late. I work in Kalamazoo.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. All right, Thanks. Now, our first charge was to see if any commissioners have questions of the music school. And I would ask any commissioner who has a question, feel free to just go ahead. Are there any questions for the music school? Thank you very much. Thank you for the music school. You can leave. Rebecca, go ahead.
Thank you. We also have Ted. There is an applicant that's going to be late, so commissioners, if you have questions for
Yeah, if I think representatives from What to Do Theater had some obligations early in the evening.
I
And
believe they're here.
They
raising their
are
hand.
able to make it. Good for you.
Great, thank you. We just wanted to make sure that we address that. All right, Mayor, then it might be easier then to go down our list of applicants to see what questions the commissioners have, unless commissioners would like to just go one by one.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I'd like to go one by one, please, starting with project number 1 on our rubric.
Starting with applicant number 1. Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. Great.
Correct, starting with project number 1.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is everyone in agreement? I see a lot of heads nodding. Let's
Yes.
go ahead then. ARC of Calhoun County.
Yes, are there questions from the commissioners in regards to the application of the ARC of Calhoun County?
I am not seeing any right now. Are there any questions for the ARC of Calhoun County? If not, we'll go on to the Battle Creek Area Habitat for Humanity. And we have former Mayor John Godfrey here. Thank you for your service with Habitat for Humanity. Are there any questions for Habitat for Humanity?
Actually, I do. Thank you. So on the financial statement, there's the other expenditures, and then you were asked to provide a short description of any of those that fall into the other. And maybe I missed the email that was the follow-up. We have gotten many. So if I missed that, my apologies. But can you kind of delineate for us what the 17,000, and 8,000, what that is? Yeah, over to the microphone, I'm sorry.
I'm Nellie Briggs, about a 30-year volunteer for Habitat, and I'm now chairing the ramp committee. And the equipment and, let's see, you're asking what the supplies are, the other?
It says other, and then there's no explanation for the other, so I was just wondering what that
Yeah, I
was.
did have that written out, but it's for lumber and hardware and permits.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Habitat? I'm not seeing any. We'll move on to Black Sheep. Am I pronouncing that properly?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for this organization? Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you. So, hi, V. I am excited to read this proposal and know a lot went into its development. I'm curious if you could share a little more about how you see the work sustaining itself after the ARPA dollar investments, if they're granted.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm V. I'm a co-owner of Black Sheep, which is a completely Black-owned record label in Battle Creek, Michigan. We submitted a proposal to build an art and culture council here in Battle Creek. I think to answer your question, Commissioner, the idea is that we understand that these ARPA funds will not sustain us for a long amount of time. So the idea is to build a business around this collective or this council. And if that looks like creating a co-working space for creatives and artists and creating a business out of that, I would love that. We have a ton of ideas, especially pertaining to downtown and what it looks like to build equity pertaining to co-ops and co-ownership. So that idea is kind of floating around as well. So I think if we're thinking about revenue streams, art education, just accessibility to tools that creators need, and being able to charge for those services.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Sorry.
Any other questions?
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
What kind of business entity are you?
We are a record label.
I know, but I mean, do you have like a filing with the state? Or are you a limited
Yeah, we're
liability?
an LLC.
And what is the, when did you guys form?
It'll be a year tomorrow, actually.
Okay. Is your office located in Flint then?
No, we're located in Battle Creek.
Well, I did some research on you, I guess. I looked at Black Sheep, BLVCK, correct?
Yep.
And the only entity I saw was the one located in Flint, so I didn't see any other business associated with your group, so that was just a
Oh, yeah,
question.
we have an official LLC here in Battle Creek.
And when did you form?
It was a year ago tomorrow.
And so how did you come up with this ask for 1.75?
So the idea is that this becomes a business and we pay the artist to sustain what the council is. We also understand that part of that money we want to be able to give to artists to complete projects. So in the initial proposal, it's broken up by category. It says the first, I believe, category is to build a creative accelerator. The other portion of the budget is allocated to development of the council and admin. There's 4 kind of sides here, so. And then I believe one of them is development of mini grants and things like that as well. And I think the last, I'll have to look at it, but it's broken up into 4 categories. And for me, I think this is a solution to an attraction problem here as well. So a lot of the funds will be used to boost events, and these are grants that we would give away to pre-existing events that do not get support here in Battle Creek at all. So that's the idea for that.
And I think your application said you have 0 experience with federal funds, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions of the commission? Commissioner Wilson and the Vice Mayor.
Sorry, I have a follow-up.
Yes.
Bea, could you explain the partnership that you have with the national group that I know I've connected with them, the name is escaping me right now, but and what their role would be in this project?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we've connected with an organization called Sound Diplomacy. They are an amazing agency that's global, that works in music and economic development. So they create music cities from cities like Battle Creek, to be honest. The idea is that they build infrastructure or help build infrastructure surrounding creative communities that are desolate, such as Battle Creek. So they've built venues, had events, built like just large amphitheaters, things of that nature, to bring commerce and also just people to the cities that they work with. They also have an arm of, I like to call it research and development. They do a lot of the kind of the op side of things, measurements, evaluations, and things of that nature. So they have reached out to us because they believe that Southwest Michigan and Battle Creek is a prime location to do something like this.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Not having experience working with federal grants, do you have a fiduciary that you'll be working with?
Yes, we do. It's a nonprofit called the Consider This Network. It's an initiative built by a local entity and a local person here, Jeremy Andrews, and a few of his colleagues that have experience in economic development and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm?
Any other commission questions? Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. The Burma Center, please. Are there any questions for the Burma Center? Commissioner,
Hi there. I'd like to know exactly what the updated total of funding that you're requesting. I saw a couple different values in the different emails I have.
Thank you for the question. Good afternoon or evening. My name is Tapar. I'm the Executive Director of the Burma Center. So originally our request was $300,000. Unfortunately, we heard back from the City of Springfield, which we requested for $100,000, but we've heard back that they can only contribute $25,000. So then I increased the ask for the city when I submitted the supplement grant. So the total ask now is $347,563.10.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Tara. Now, as far as the boiler system, now, were you able to commit funds from the city of Springfield as well to help out with the boiler system?
Yes, and that was the 25,000. Their ARPA money is less than $500,000, and so for them, that 25 was significant, according to what they shared with us.
And that will be enough to cover the boiler system in the...
No, what I actually need right now to actually fully cover, and we did hear some few funders that confirmed within the last 2 weeks. So right now, what I have confirmed total for the boiler is $495,998. What I need is $815,236.10. So the remaining balance that I need is $319,238.10. But the contractor just yesterday was telling us that the estimate will increase because the way and how back then when they did the HVAC, it's not in compliance with the modern way, and so they have to do a lot more construction, and they don't know how much more increase it would be. And so even though my need, based on what the quote that was given to me, is $318,238, I would still like to request for the city to fund me the full amount, just so I can kind of cover for the unexpected costs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
Hi, Ta.
Hi.
Could you tell us a little bit about how having a operating boiler,
Yes.
what it would mean for the work that the Burma Center does and the impact it has on our community? So will it allow you to expand tenants? Will it help you retain the current tenants? Just tell us a little bit about that if you can.
Yes. Thank you for the question and the opportunity to share with the rest of the commissioners. So the Burma Center, we owned an old school, and we currently have over 9 tenants that are with us. Just this week, the boiler is over 60 years old, and so we have a lot of issues running it. Just this week, the heat exchange didn't work, so part of the building didn't have heat, part of them did. So Catching the Dream have to close classes. And so this investment that you're making to the Burma Center is not just the Burma Center, but all of the 9 tenants that are with us. And collectively, we serve over 300 people on a daily basis. And so I just want you to consider that your investment is impacting the 300 people that come daily due to the different organizations and who they serve, but also their parents and all the people that are connected to them.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Could you list your 9 tenants, just so folks are aware?
Yeah, so it is the Calhoun Community High School, which is our largest tenants, Vets Helping Vets, Catching the Dream, Woodlawn, the Tabernacle, and then ECC, Early Childhood Connection, Easy Way, and then, sorry, I don't have my note with me, and last thing, I can pull it up for you. E3 just left, but they were a tenant as of last month. And then we have, who was the other person? Kingman was there, but then their contract just ended. So I can't remember the last 2, but we have a lot of people that come in and out of us.
And by having functional heat, how many other tenants would you be able to house there at the Burma Center?
It depends on how many renovation we can take on with the building, but right now I have the current tenants that I have, they want to expand their classroom and the programs that they offer. So like the Calhoun Community High School, there's been a need in a lot more virtual learning classes, so they want to rent more spaces. Oh, one of my other tenants is the Kellogg Foundation. They use our area, and then Blue Ox is interested in renting from us too. And so I have at least like 3 or 4 people that are checking in on the status of the rooms that we have.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We'll next move to the Calhoun County Homeless Coalition. Are there any questions of this organization? Commissioner Blood.
Thank you. With the Calhoun County Homeless Coalition makes me think of group. Can the groups just be identified in that coalition, just so I know all the groups that are present?
Could you please come forward to the microphone?
If I might say, this was a generic inquiry into our system. There wasn't an actual ask. The individual organizations of the Calhoun County Homeless Coalition have applied individually. We did not receive a full proposal from the Calhoun County Homeless Coalition, for clarification.
Thank you.
Oh.
Commissioner, did you get your answer that you needed?
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions of this organization? Vice Mayor?
I just want to, so should we consider this as a proposal at all?
Well, it was a submission, but you'll see there was nothing submitted for the supplemental, so, you know, it remains as it was submitted, but there was no project information, budget, nothing like that, so technically it's not.
I just wanted to confirm that because I have not scored this project.
Thank you.
Okay, next, catalyzing community giving. Are there any questions of this? Commissioner Wilson?
I have several, if it's okay. Hi, Dr. Bayless. So I want to start with just an appreciation for the work that the village is trying to do and the heavy lift it is to try and really support coordination and technical assistance at this level. You know, a decade ago, it's where I was when I started Pulse, and so I can fully appreciate the growing pains. That this work is critically important, and that although those of us who sit in positions where we make a lot of decisions want collaboration to happen, it doesn't happen magically. It requires, it is a lot of work, and it requires just intensive attention. And so I just want to set the stage for that, because I think it's important, and not a lot of people really can appreciate that as fully as they should. I am curious, in the budget, I have a question very specifically around security services.
Yep.
I wasn't sure what that was for, so if you could explain what that is. And maybe I'll ask each of my questions, and then you can just get to them, and there's only a couple more.
Okay.
I'm curious how each anchor institution or your members are identifying their needs and accessing the resources that you would manage. So what does that process look like? And then I was curious about who's leading the post-food market efforts.
Absolutely. So I'll start with your first one, security services. We are, as you see in our request, we're looking to acquire Southwestern to revitalize that as an active community asset again and utilize that as a multicultural center that anchors the village. And so the security services, in our due diligence and working with BCPS, and you know, I'm sure you all have seen there's been multiple fires in recent months there, and we have to make sure for liability purposes that there's some security.
Okay. So are those people or are those like technology for security?
Both.
Okay.
A combination of both.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And then how our members are showing up, that has changed significantly. Our request was actually a request for the Senate appropriations dollars to go through economic development. And as we have moved through this, one of the things that, you know, in trying to diversify resources into our communities of color, I approached the city to request a match if we were able to receive those dollars. That was way before ARPA came in and all of the things. Since then, we've had, you know, our leaders work quickly and they move quickly and things and projects and things evolve. And so we've had some different movement around, you know, where folks wanted to kind of land with the supports. Basically, the bottom line is we want to fill the gaps. We want to be that entity, that network that comes in and fills the gaps for our leaders of color when they can't access 100% support across the board. Also, too, you know, as we're being mindful of how we're diversifying the funding resources to support the village work, we recognize that grants can only be used for programmatic and service sorts of and capacity supports, technical supports. Grant dollars cannot be used for capital costs. And what we recognized and what we heard through town halls and through multiple community conversations was that there are some missing components in our village that support our residents of color. And so we've identified some of those different infrastructure pieces that make sense to make sure that we're really being intentional to sow into and build up and develop and in partnership with our community partners, as part of the sustainability piece, with our community partners to bring them into these spaces so that we're filling those gaps from resources and services reaching residents of color, so we can start to see the data across our entire community increase with regard to who is being served and where folks are being served. And so we're trying to kind of circumvent some of the...
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Bayless.
Yeah.
Because we're live streaming, could you speak into the microphone?
Oh,
Because we're
absolutely.
getting some comments that they can't hear you.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. One of the things that we're, just being mindful of is that, how do we plan to sustain these spaces? And so everything that we're looking at and how our leaders come in is they tell us what their needs are. Here's what I need. And I'm sure everybody's kind of seen the reemergence plan and pieces of it and some of our additional other publications. And so, for example, we were putting in we were going in for a request for boiler for Burma before any of this, right? Because we recognize that's a need. However, if there's resources available that the Burma Center can access to support that, let's figure out some other things that we can do to fill some of the gaps. They have a multi-million-dollar capital campaign in front of them, and so the request that they're making is very small, a very small portion of that greater need. And so, what we're trying to do, again, is just simply fill the gaps. And I think from a lot of the documents that you've probably seen come in from me around this project and around our ARPA request would suggest part of this collaborative and collective impact model, we require some flexibility. And so, I've just been very clear that we want to bucket this money to support the infrastructure the capital cost, that we will not be able to get grant dollars for, to set up the systems so that our partners, our community partners, such as a Michigan Works, can come in and bring critical services into the village to the people that need it.
Thank you. Then the just last question was around the post-food market.
Yes.
Okay.
Post-food market, we have Pastor Bailey that's leading over in that space. However, I just want to just be very transparent. We are in the process of inviting additional members into this network. And one of the members that we intend to bring in is a leader in the post-Franklin space. I support all leaders in this community focusing on BIPOC leadership and support for residents of color. And so, I've had conversations. And so, we've been able to identify needs even outside of the immediate network, the current network, for those that are coming in very soon.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reynolds. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Bayless, hi. I have a question now. You talked about the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know or have seen your proposal, can you elaborate about the gaps that you're referring to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So some of the things that we've seen even across all of the data around social services supports in our community, getting resources to the ground, particularly around, we see some gaps, of course, in food, transportation, housing, and the gamut, right? Mm-hmm. Our proposal particularly focuses on economic development. Why? Because we look at, one of our objectives, our collective objectives, is to increase the number of BIPOC residents participating in our local economy. We would hope to increase that number by 2% annually. And we recognize from and understand from the community conversations that we're having, the town halls, where folks are struggling, where the challenges are. Within our collective, we have and underdocumented residents that are seeking support from our leaders. We have folks that have been previously incarcerated, returning to our community and need training and support and certifications and credentials. We're seeing those things. And what's happening is our leaders of color tend to be heavily leaned on without resources. And so they're doing all of this kind of pushing and prodding and working. They're figuring out how to support. And we're saying, as a collective, that's not fair. It's time to restore. And so we need to pour into our leaders of color and the infrastructure that's needed based on what we hear residents saying they want and need. And we need to work together. And what we're doing is we're going and we're connecting with our community partners, such as a Michigan Works, such as a KCC, such as BCPS. And we're saying, how do we partner better with you? How do we work together differently?
Thank you.
Commissioner Herring.
Thank you. What leader from Post Edition was that for the Post Food Market and an organization?
That's coming in? Well, quite transparently, Kingdom Builders.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Vice Mayor.
Hi, thank you. I guess I just have questions. A lot of the organizations that are working through your umbrella, they've also put in applications for their own individual grants. So I'm wondering why this route was taken rather than having the individual organizations apply for their direct needs.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, like I indicated at the onset, my request came ahead of all of the ARPA stuff. We didn't know ARPA dollars were coming in. I was simply trying to diversify the resources supporting the collective. At the time, we were not in a place that we had determined that we were going to formalize into a formal entity, into our own nonprofit organization. And as we began to move down that road, then, leaders started saying, hey, I'm good, and we encourage them. We encourage them, we support them, and quite frankly, the need is so massive. It does require a collective request and individual requests.
I guess my main concern was just that we're not duplicating
No duplication.
in your request what has been requested by the individual organization.
No duplication.
Okay.
I have over 20 years of experience reporting to federal state grants, so no, yep.
Okay.
We'll be very
Thank you.
transparent and careful.
Commissioner Blood.
Thank you. Hi. So that was a great follow-up, lead into my question. So I don't have a computer, I can't bring anything up to ask specifically numbers, but there are several organizations and there are dollar amounts attached to each one. Are there plans attached to each one? So Burma Center is there for a set amount of dollars, RISE is there for a set amount of dollars. Are there plans, because those plans weren't forwarded to say, okay, if we're going to grant, we'll just say X amount of dollars to Burma Center, and we know that we have another request from them, we can see that transparent diversification. Is that something you have and can provide?
We can absolutely provide it, but what I will tell you is this. Since the onset of the process, there have been some shifts. For example, there was an initial kind of plan to acquire Washington Elementary for a space for RISE, and that changed for a multitude of reasons. And so that does not change our support for supporting some facility space for RISE, a home for RISE. It just simply means we might have some adjustments to make, and I've tried to provide some documentation just to say the buckets don't change. We might have to adjust some numbers just based on needs changing.
Okay, so then when, so those dollar requests, you're saying that, okay, the $30,000, that's just throwing a number out there, for Burma Center, that number won't change, but their needs might change?
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, she has a multi-million-dollar campaign.
Yes. I appreciate the conversation because, as you heard, my building is an old school, so when we did the assessment of the infrastructure update, it was close to $5 million that we needed. But then my committee was like, we can't take that, that's too massive, we can commit 2.5. And so when we selected our project, the priorities were the HVAC system, the parking lot, and then the roof, and then the ADA update, because those are all critical things that determine whether or not we operate the building. And so while we asked for specifically for the HVAC system, because like I said, there's such urgent need, and I was hoping that we would have that approved way before, but that's okay. But we do have other infrastructure update that were critical. So the request from the village is seeing us as a collective, not just as this little piece that we're asking from the city. And so while I guess my request is that while we focus on the small, there's also so much more greater needs in our community that each of our organizations are dealing with. And so, but what I would say confidently is that because of the transparency and the relationship that we're working through all of us, that we will have the detail that you ask and how we partner, how we collaborate, and how we're not duplicating the fund.
Okay. The only reason I ask is because in my mind, being that this is a new process, for the organizations that aren't duplicated, the ones that have not submitted their own independent request, might it be more fluid to take those smaller requests under CCG and move them to their individual organizations that are asking and keep the ones that aren't duplicated under CCG that maybe will need that pass-through?
No, and here's why. Like I said, the need is so massive, number one, that quite frankly, you could fund all of them fully, all of us fully, and it still not be met, even close to met at all. Two, there are, each of the leaders have lead their own organizations, and their own organizations have their own mission and vision and things that they're following. Their objectives and outcomes that they have to, that they're working towards. As a collective, we also have a set of collective goals and objectives that aren't always the same as each organization, if you see what I'm saying. So there's some collective work that happens that has to have some resources poured into it, and then there's the individual needs of each organization. Now, quite frankly, with the reporting to the feds, I'm going to be super careful to make sure that what we're asking for supports for each of the individual organizations fall within our goals and objectives and the outcomes that we're responsible and accountable for achieving.
Okay, so I think that helps make some sense. So those organizations, if Burma's getting 30, that 30 would be to support the services that they bring to the collective.
No, the Burma Center, whatever she applies for the Burma Center, I don't have any.
Under you.
Oh, under me, yes.
Under
Those-
you,
yes.
what she applies for under the CCG,
Yep.
those funds would be utilized to support services they provide under CCG.
collective, yes.
Not for their building, they're independent, but for the collective.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
For clarifying.
And just keeping in mind that the collective objective is to strengthen leaders and organizations, that's part of it, right? But we do have some very key objectives and outcomes that we're collectively working towards achieving.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you, let's answer the question so that we can move on, because this is our 6th project. We have 30 different groups we have to go through, so we need to be on time. Are there any other commission questions? We're done. We'll go on to Charitable Union, project number 7. Are there any questions of this group? I am not seeing any. Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry, I did have questions. Hello.
Evening.
I had questions regarding certain allotments of money put forth. So I have questions about specifically insurance, rent, and utility. Would this be in a separate facility than the Charitable Union facility on Calhoun Street?
No, it would not. And technically, the rent line, I couldn't edit the word rent. That is actually going to be our building maintenance and repairs line item in our budget.
Okay. So is this existing space that Charitable Union is using, or it is an addition, or I don't know why there would be extra costs for insurance, rent, and utilities if these already fall under the operations occurring now at the Charitable Union?
So each program is allocated some portion of our space, insurance, utilities, for what it needs to operate. So when we keep the formula on hand, it is a significant space that we utilize. At a minimum, we have 200 cans of formula on hand at a time. Maximum is about 400 cans, so it is a significant space.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of the Charitable Union? Commissioner Sophia.
What happens when the ARPA dollars go away?
So we are currently seeking new funding. As we included in the application, this program had been funded locally, and the pillar of funding was lost. So we are seeking the funding. You may not be aware, but there is a real need for formula in our community right now, and we are getting hit really hard. So it is a program that is without funding. Currently, it could go away temporarily until it is funded.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the charitable union?
When did you lose your funding?
We lost, the pillar was eliminated July 1st, 2020.
And what other funding are you seeking?
We have sought some funding with, I am so sorry, it is outside of our community. Off the top of my head, I can't think of the organization, but I can get that answer to you tonight.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Move on to our next organization, Community Action, project number 8. Are there any questions of Community Action? Commissioner Morris.
Hi. Hi. I just was wondering if you could speak to the housing incentive and how that will work and what it will look like.
Sure. I'm Dawn McDonald. I'm the Director of Human Resources with Community Action. And what this project is the idea is to model after the Battle Creek Public Schools, but for early childhood education, because there's such a big staff shortage with regards to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
How many children are you, thank you, Mayor, how many children are you showing support to at the present time?
We usually, we average showing support of educational services of an average of 300 students. We are probably at 150 to 200 now because we are short-staffed.
Thank you.
Dawn, can you speak to the fact that this is not just for community action staff, but this is for the entire system of early childhood professionals that we have locally?
Yes. So with that, it's not like Kathy had mentioned, it's not only community action that has been hit hard with staff shortages and servicing children in early childhood. It's the whole Battle Creek community. We have many community daycare centers, other preschools that are not able to operate their classrooms fully because we don't have the qualified staff.
Commissioner Morrison and Commissioner Wilson.
Have you, I'm sorry, have you reached out to any other organizations already?
Yes.
Yet, and are they on board with this?
We're currently in the process of submitting a grant, which is larger than what we requested through the City of Battle Creek to the W.K. Kellogg Foundation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
Just for full transparency, this project was completed through the work that I facilitate, although I'm not connected to it at all, so I'm going to recuse myself. And I'd just like to add a little more context, if I might, Don. Through a scan that Lara, which is the licensing agency, did, the state of Michigan is down 9,000 early childhood professionals right now across the state. A lot of that has to do with the fact that 98% of all other professions make more than early childhood professionals. They don't make enough money to live right now, and they're having options to go to other forms of work. So this is really just a critical way of us incentivizing the sector. And so I really just wanted to kind of let folks know that this was a collective response building on a Battle Creek Public Schools project that has been successful in attracting and retaining staff.
I was going to mention that, but no one asked, so I just...
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Blood.
Yes, thank you. Right now with the workers that you have, how many do you feel would utilize this immediately if it went and was approved? And how many do you feel it will attract into the system and boost that staff shortage?
Well, we always hope that we get 100% attraction into this from incentives. The idea here is to encourage people to come into the field and because like Kathy said, the income level of early childhood educators is, anywhere from minimum wage to $18 an hour. And with that, with these incentives on top of that, I feel that we could at least gain some momentum in attracting maybe 20% of those openings or 25% of those openings, over a period of time. This is not going to happen overnight, and that's why the grant was submitted for 3 years. We were hit very hard with COVID as well, and the pandemic, which increased our vacancies. And so before COVID, we had about 4 openings in Battle Creek, just from community action, and now we have 34. So we're hoping that this incentivizes people to come to the profession, along with the current wages we're able to compensate professionals with, and bring more economic development to the city.
Terrific, thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions? We're going to take a 3 to 4 minute break and allow everyone to either get coffee or go to the potty. What's that?
No, 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 I appreciate it, because I needed clarification. No, don't apologize. That's fine.
We'll next move to project number 9, Haven of Rest Ministries. Are there any questions of Haven the Rest? I do not see any questions for this organization. We'll move on to the next one, Kingdom Builders Worldwide. Are there any questions for Kingdom Builders Worldwide? Commissioner Bonica?
I actually have a couple of questions for you. Thank you, sir. Can you speak a little bit to the work that has been done during COVID in this past 2 years?
Bishop Smith, Kingdom Builders Worldwide. We have remained open. So when the city, all the community centers of the public school system had to shut down for good reasons, we remained open. We did remain social and did the right thing, but we hosted all those events during that period, and we have remained open since.
And my other question is, can you speak to the post-market that you are partnered with CCG about? Just a little bit about that. So you said he's a partner with CCG, correct?
I said he is part of the next group of BIPOC leaders being invited to network in, and I've been supporting and talking with him about his work. We've also identified through community data that there's a food desert in Coast Franklin with Main Street Market leading. If we acquire Main Street Market, that eliminates the food desert for Coast Franklin. Bishop Smith is already working around food.
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt here. We're also filming this on Facebook and I believe Access Vision, and
It's
we're going to have to be at the microphone.
YouTube, but yep, you're going to need to speak into the microphone for the live stream to be heard.
Did you get your question answered, Commissioner?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
When I was at the mic and I was asked about who's leading the post-Franklin food market, I explained that we have another cohort of BIPOC leaders that are being networked in, currently being networked in. So he can't speak to the details of the inner workings until he is in.
So he
network.
hasn't been approached about it yet?
Yes, he has. You can speak to that.
Yeah, go.
That doesn't have anything to do with his request.
This is not even my story. My story is what I have requested.
Okay, and that,
Nope, that's fine.
all right. Any other questions of Kingdom Builders? Vice Mayor?
Hi there, welcome.
Thank you.
I had questions. So specifically, it says that you're seeking money for the air control compressor and an elevator system. Is that correct?
That's
So
part
that
of
people can access the upstairs and
Yes.
so that you can have an auditorium that is nice and cool in the summer,
Yes.
which I'm
Yes.
sure would be appreciated by all.
Yes.
I'm wondering what kind of activities will take place on those second floors and in the auditorium? And also, like, what's taking place there now?
So
that these
everything we're
improvements
doing
would
now
support?
is all taking place on the main floor because we're not allowed to use the second or the third floor. With the elevator, it allows us to expand all of our programs, and we just go on the second and third floor. Our full kitchen is on the third floor where we have our grandparents program with our young children, teaching them how to cook. All of those things are literally on the second and third floor. We're doing everything on the main floor, which is the only floor the city has allowed us to actually work out of. So we're just requesting money to continue to do what we're already doing and enhance our program.
Okay. Concerns that have been raised to me are that you are a religious organization, and people had concerns about making capital investments in a religious organization. So I
Well-
just want to make sure that the activities that are taking place in these areas, the second and third floor and the auditorium, that they are also activities that include the greater public and not just the congregation.
So when the city had the storm, I don't think a person was concerned about what religion. They needed a place for me to house them, and I housed them in the gymnasium. When senior citizens need a place to dance and participate, I don't think they ask for religion. I think we're missing what a religion organization, per se, a 501c3. Greater Kingdom International is a 501c3 that has absolutely nothing to do with the religion.
And that's what I needed you to say. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Sophia.
I did have a question. So on your form that you filled out, the question was, has your organization received and managed federal funding in the past? And again, my apologies if this was clarified in a subsequent email. You checked both yes and no.
Well, I checked yes and no only because we know how to manage, but we've never received any federal dollars to do any of the things we've been doing for 4 years.
Okay, so your organization has not received and managed, and I'm assuming then that you will not be working with a fiduciary or partner experienced in managing because you believe that you have the skills necessary to do that.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We'll move on to the Kingdom Museum. Is there anyone here from Kingdom Museum, or do we have any questions for him? Commissioner Morris?
Can you speak to the employment difference pre-COVID to how it's been affected by COVID?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Eltine de Jong, Executive Director of Kingman Museum. In 2020, March of 2020, we had 2 full-time, 1 part-time, and then about 9 people who'd work at the museum in the weekends and also during like field trip season. And we had to unfortunately lay off those 9. And after furloughing the 2 other staff members, we were able to hire them back with all the federal relief grant support that we received. Yeah. So currently we have 3 employees working. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Commissioner Wilson? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll next move to Project 12, Munn and Slaby.
We did not receive supplemental information or further information.
Okay, thank you very much, City Manager. The Music Center, Project 13, are there any questions of the Music Center?
We started with them, Mayor, so we can
Thank
keep
you.
going. Yep.
Let's try Neighborhoods Incorporated. Are there any questions of yes, Commissioner Wilson?
Hello, Arturo. I'm curious if you could share with us the impact you see having a CDFI or a Community Development Financial Institution in Battle Creek could bring to us, and what the absence of one currently might mean.
Yeah, so first and foremost, it's directly in alignment with what our mission is, and that's in really just kind of addressing the disparity in BIPOC home ownership. Conventionally, here in Battle Creek and throughout the county, of course, 21% as opposed to 72% or so. Now, currently, as a lender, a lot of our properties, we have a ton that are rent to own. We have a lot of people that have literally transitioned from rapid rehousing to almost getting into conventional rental properties, coming into our rent to own properties, now building the credit to actually establish home ownership. Being able to recognize those trends, recognize how it bridges those gaps to economic opportunity is right down with our essential mission and our values.
Thank you.
Any other questions on neighborhoods? Commissioner Sophia and Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you. So I applaud these goals.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've put together a very robust budget here.
Thank you.
But what happens, again, I mean, it's a question that I may have for many of you. What happens when these dollars go away? How does this program sustain itself? And I think that is a problem that I've seen time and time and time again within our community is we throw money at the issue du jour, and then that money goes away, and you're stuck trying to maintain a program.
Yeah, so that budget, we approached it conservatively. So it's stretched out for 3 years, but internally, we have it budgeted more so for 5 years in alignment with our updated strategic plan. I've been quite the man about town, meeting with our local foundations, potential donors, both public, private sector, even some faith-based, not only in Battle Creek, but throughout the county, some even at the state level. And we have certain benchmarks to raise on our own discretionarily a minimum of $75,000 every year. And that's to really adhere or to meet or match about 30% of our operational costs. Because centrally, what this really is about is programmatic diversification. We're now the HARA. We've picked up so many programs. Our staff has quadrupled to a full-time staff of about 16, which just about a year ago was about 4. And with that comes heightened service delivery. We've gotten rid of almost 14 million now in services to this community. With that comes the opportunity for us to make significant enhancements to our current properties, to look for transitional housing opportunities, a very significant gap that we see in our rapid rehousing population, and picking up a lot of properties from stakeholders who may be willing to sell at reasonable rates so that we can continue in our alignment, which is supportive housing. And with that, of course, with the transitional housing piece, we put a focus on rapid rehousing because not only do we recognize that gap in transitional housing, but through satisfying that, we help stop the spread of COVID-19 here in Battle Creek. And we established that very first step so that we can incorporate tenant-based rental assistance, get folks into our rent-to-own properties, and then again, continue to address that disparity in home ownership here in Battle Creek.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yep, so to clarify, I had a similar question. You see this investment in staffing over the next 2 years through these dollars as a way to increase your revenue so that those positions then would be sustained beyond that because of the other, or how you'd attract other dollars beyond this?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. It's a 3-year budget, but we've already broken it down into a 6-year plan for the most part internally.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Henry?
Thank you. I'd just like to let it be known that I have a conflict of interest as I am employed by Neighborhoods, Inc. So I won't be voting, but I'd like to add a little bit of information. Just so, sorry.
So if you have to recuse, you're not supposed to offer any comments?
No comments at all? Okay, well, never mind.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes, for the record, will you introduce yourself and your title at Neighborhood Inc., please?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Arturo Puckrin. I'm the Executive Director, President, and CEO of Neighborhoods Incorporated of Battle Creek.
Thank you.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
Any other commission questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next on our Project 15, New Level Sports Ministries. Are there any questions of this organization? New Level Sports. Commissioner Wilson.
Hello.
Good evening. Will Fobbs, consultant for ELNC, and representing Pastor McCoy in his absence.
All right. Hi, Will. Thanks for being here tonight. I have a couple questions. First of all, is there an identified location for the child care center that's being proposed?
Yes, there is. I've been working with architects and a civil engineering firm for geotech and survey, and it's actually, I would say, just northwest of the football field that's currently in the youth village.
So it'll be a new build?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Do you see this program participating in the career pathway that is local to support the workforce development element of it?
Certainly. Actually, I just finished a Good Jobs Challenge grant for workforce development. That's a $10 million grant, and actually wrote in our child care centers because obviously they're part of workforce development if we're looking at this with the right lens.
Okay, and lastly, this is a significant request at $4.2 million. I'm curious if it is a reduced amount, what will be prioritized?
The child care center is prioritized. The reason why the field house was there and the education center was because as in their plan for the youth village, They're moving their multi-purpose area, which houses like neighborhoods and different services. They're moving that into different areas. And so we had to put the kiddos somewhere for out-of-school time learning and after-school programming. That was why those were packaged the way they were.
Okay, thank you, Will.
Any other questions for this organization? Thank you very much, sir. Next item, Rise Corporation, Project 17. Commissioner Blood.
Thank you. Hi, sir. How are you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. First of all, wonderful. You had everything laid out, pages and pages for me to read. Loved everything about it. I did have one question, though, when looking over the numbers. So you gave us very detailed amounts of how many families you impacted and served monthly. To do that, what were those program costs? That was the only thing that was missing. So I could look at the comparison by what you spent compared to what you're requesting.
Okay, could you repeat that again?
Yes. So running the program so far, what have you spent running the program with the data you provided and the number of, the amount of food, families you've serviced?
Up to date?
Well, as close as you can. You may not have off the top of your head.
Yeah, and so I guess thinking about the funding that we received through the Disaster Relief Fund from United Way, received funding from CCG, and now we just was funded, we just received a little funding from Blue Cross Blue Shield, Michigan. I'll say close to $1 million.
Okay, so that million has been...
And that's been over the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you. And that has obviously been put all back into the community and the
Yes.
food and service. Yep, okay, terrific. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Wilson, then Commissioner Sophia.
Hi, Damon. Thanks for
Hi, how
being
you
here
doing?
tonight. Just a quick question about what you've learned about food insecurity right now, and could you tell us a little bit about what you see as the ongoing need? Like, is there a specific focus, a specific target audience, a specific neighborhood?
Yeah, so no, we've been doing the pandemic, the distribution since the onset of the pandemic, April of 2020. And we started off with 10 families in the Washington Heights community, and we specifically targeted Washington Heights community because we found out Washington Heights community is 33% below the federal poverty level, according to the Alice report. Also, 9.8% unemployment, high school graduation rate 43%. Per capita income is $15,100. And so also understanding that Washington Heights predominantly African American, and African Americans were being affected by COVID at a higher rate because of underlying health issues. And so again, just targeting Washington Heights area, we started off with 10 families. At the height of what we're doing, when we had to end, we were at 350 families a week. And we expanded to the Post-Franklin neighborhood, which is all under Ward 2. It mirrors Washington Heights. And so what we were seeing was a lot of people were coming from Post-Franklin over to Washington Heights to receive the services. Also, the numbers that we're seeing is that 85% of the 350 families that we're serving is elder. And also, I believe we have 50 deliveries that we make to elder and disabled. And so that's our target population is the elder, African American population, BIPOC, and again, both communities, Washington Heights and Post Franklin.
Thank you.
Same question as I've had before. Let me go back to my numbers here. So you are asking for 88% of the total operating, I can't find it, I just had it here. I mean, it's a really high percentage of the dollars that you're asking for to the total cost of the project. So again, these dollars go away. So how do you sustain this going forward?
Yes, well, Our plans to sustain is obviously to continue to fundraise, continue to seek grants also through our partnerships. We're partnering with entities like Sunlight Gardens, Sprout. Sunlight Garden is an urban farm right in Washington Heights community. Continue to try to, again, get fresh food, fresh produce. Even we talk about Post Franklin, we just heard earlier talking about trying to get a market over there. And so this grant is for, our proposal for over 3 years. And so we're talking about being able to sustain people for 3 years. And it's a food insecurity, food desert, especially in these two communities. There's not access to any healthy food at all. And so I think just that in itself is sustainability for 3 years for 350 families every week.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Damon. Could you explain how the division is for the administrative costs? There was a question about that. What goes into that? That was a kind of a high figure. Just wanted to, if you have a breakdown of that?
Yeah, no, we did adjust that. Have you seen that? Yeah, we did adjust that figure in there. It was really, so I guess our operations and administrative costs, it was kind of all combined, so we did make a more detailed breakdown.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Okay.
Breakdown of that.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the Share Center, Project 18. Are there any questions of the Share Center? Commissioner Wilson, I'm sorry.
That's right. Hi, Robert. Thanks for being here. I'm curious if you could share with us how you see the folks accessing the services at the Share Center changing in the next couple years, given the moratorium on evictions, et cetera. Do you anticipate that, and what would that look like?
Yes. Hi, I'm Robert Elkert, Executive Director of the Share Center. Yeah, we are already starting to see some of the changes that research is kind of predicting will happen. I shared some of the figures in the initial proposal, but we know that chronic homelessness is going to increase significantly over the next few years as a result of the pandemic. And the chronically homeless are folks who have been homeless for more than 12 months and struggling with a mental health or an addiction issue. And so our drop-in services are going to become even more vital for those folks. CDC has released some data showing that mental health issues and substance abuse issues have increased significantly as a result of the pandemic. I don't think anybody's terribly surprised by that. And if you look at the Community Health Needs Assessment that just came out, it's kind of a mirror of the national figures. In fact, mental health and substance abuse were ranked as the two highest community health needs priorities. So we expect to see a lot more of the chronically homeless. But what we're also seeing is the other group that's increasing as a result of the pandemic and the recession. And those are families who are no longer able to sustain housing or are on the verge of losing their housing. And so we're seeing them come to the cafeteria side of our building, take advantage of our meals programs and our basic needs resource room that we just opened up. And we're starting to see more families, families with children. We're tracking the household sizes of the folks that come in, and we're starting to see more and more the higher numbers of household numbers, 3 and 4 household members coming in for a meal at a time. So we are seeing these changing demographics that, again, we're not surprised by it because, we are seeing the eviction moratorium being lifted. Family benefits, the tax credit didn't renew, so that's going to have a huge impact on those Alice families who, already 40% of the households in Calhoun County were financially unstable. That was before the pandemic. So, yeah, we're starting to see more of the same folks and then more of a different demographic as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Did you get your answer, Commissioner Wilson? Thank you. Commissioner Sophia.
Thank you. So I've noted on your financial breakdown, you've got over $200,000 of your $364,000 request that is listed as other. What is this other? What is other?
So unfortunately, when I tried to fill out the application, that text field wasn't working, so I sent a follow-up email.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if it was shared with everybody, but that's mostly, well, it's entirely capital improvement costs. I wasn't sure which line to put that on.
Okay.
And I can get you a more detailed breakdown if you'd like.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Reynolds? No? Is there any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll next move to South Michigan Food Bank. Project 19, are there any questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you for being here. Project 20, South Michigan Food Bank. Any questions? Commissioner Sophia.
Thank you. So I think that this is the food purchase rather than the community building. Is that correct? I just want to make sure. Because my question with regard to this was, yeah, I mean, so these are City of Battle Creek ARPA dollars. So how much of this is going back into the residents of the city and this community rather than the other 7 counties that you service?
Right, good question, thank you.
Good question.
And I appreciate the opportunity. Peter Vogel, I'm the CEO of South Michigan Food Bank. So, yeah, I get it. We serve 8 counties, it's really broad, and most of our data really is by county, but I've actually broken it down a little bit into Battle Creek specifically. So I guess I'd answer that question a couple of different ways, because one of them I want to just sort of share the bigger picture of the reality of the food bank real fast if I can, right? So COVID hit us, we've hit records, we've been here, this is our 39th year, we've hit records numbers of moving pounds that we have never seen the last 2 years, right? This last year has been a real big challenge for us in the sense that a lot of the food resources have just not been available for us, right? So I'll just, without getting into all the details about the feds are getting us a lot less food, and our trucks that go out used to pick up about 3 truckloads from the grocery stores and stuff, get about 3 truckloads of food coming back that's donated to us. That's now about a half of a truckload a week that we're getting, right? So I had to sit down with my board about halfway through the year and say, guys, we have 2 choices. I can make budget or we can meet demand. We really can't do both. And so we've actually spent we spent a little bit more than $1.6 million on food this year to cover that gap in the hole that we weren't really anticipating. How that applies to Battle Creek specifically, I ran the numbers a little bit. Battle Creek specifically, we have 90 distribution partners. So, I mean, it's several of them are in here that have been talking that have had some really great proposals too, right? It's a couple shelters, it's some, it's all kinds of things. It's some schools, it's all kinds of partners, right? We moved in the last 2 years, in Battle Creek specifically, we put in a little more than 6 million pounds of food into Battle Creek specifically over the last 2 years. Last year was just a little bit less than the year before. Both years have been about 3 million pounds. When you break that down through Feeding America's calculations, it basically means the food we're putting into Battle Creek is feeding 7,023 people in Battle Creek every day for the last 2 years. That's the work that we're doing. And we have just this big financial gap, right? I've had to put a lot of our resources in to meet demand, and my board's been real supportive, and I appreciate that. So, yeah, the reality is, can we take all those resources and put them right into Battle Creek? Absolutely. I can 100% guarantee that all of that money will be going right into supplying the food resources. To be really honest, of all the cities that we serve in our 8 counties, clearly Battle Creek, well, we're in Battle Creek. Right? So it sort of makes sense. And there's a lot of need here, as we know. So we're trying to do the very best to be able to meet that need, and we're really challenged financially to be able to make that happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How many other counties have given you money, and how much, if any?
Counties like this?
Well, that you serve. You're asking us for money, so how many of them have you asked for, and how much have they given you?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I haven't found a lot of county systems that have excess food. If you're talking about...
No, I'm just talking money. I'm talking ARPA funds. How many?
So
nobody has given you any money?
Not yet.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to the Vice Mayor.
Not through ARPA funds, for sure.
We're going to go to the Vice Mayor, then Commissioner Blood.
Sure. I actually have a question about, I'm sorry, with the 2 proposals, I don't remember which one is 19 and which one is 20 on our list. For the community building,
Yes.
how are folks accessing the community building? It sounds like there's going to be a lot of like lower income folks, Alice population that is being targeted through the program that you'd like to set up. How are they getting to you? Because you're not very centrally located.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're in the Custer Industrial Park right here just outside of Battle Creek. So I'll answer the question, and it's a little bit different, right? So we bought the building. We bought the building a little more than a year and a half ago, so we've got it. It's about 10,000 square foot building that butts up to our property, so we could use it a lot of creative ways. We came up with this idea, honestly, because of the partnership that we have with Grace Health, the federally qualified health center, which you guys probably know. We're in year 2 of what's been $1 million grant that we have, where we're actually partnering with them. Their medical staff are identifying, we're targeting heart disease and diabetes. Their medical staff are identifying clients and screening them that really could benefit from eating healthier lifestyles. And so what the food bank is doing is we're boxing up food, doing recipes, and sending them out to people. Actually, DoorDash has volunteered and stepped up, and I get free delivery. DoorDash is doing free deliveries for a year, so that's really cool for us. So it's really helping us really expand that program out and really grow it. It's getting a ton of traction. It's getting really great. I mean, we got funded for another $500,000, and we look like the state's actually talking about taking this program and making it statewide. So we're trying to maybe make Battle Creek a center to sort of show the whole state how we can really, food banks can really help FQHCs teach the clientele how to eat and live healthier lives, right? The challenge that we're getting on that, I know it's a long answer to a short story, question, but the issue gets to be, the feedback we get, the only negative feedback we get is we're offering up people foods that they have never experienced before and they've never seen, right? They don't know what to do with it, they're not real comfortable with it. So we can give them the food and the recipes, but that doesn't seem to be enough. So what we really want to do with the building is create kind of a demonstration kitchen. Fire Keepers is offered up to bring in some chefs to come in and kind of sit down with people and show them how to cook up the food. That's really kind of what we want to do as a primary goal. And then we want to make it a community resource, so it's sort of a community kitchen. So we're actually wanting to put a road around it so we can take school buses through it, and schools can do field trips to come in and cook. We want to do cooking classes in there. On one side, we want to do a vertical growing center so that we can grow foods, really healthy foods, and give out year-round to everybody, and then have clubs or schools. We got a football team that wants to sort of maybe sponsor it and grow tomatoes in the middle of the winter for people. And then I've got land that as this grows out, I'm interested in putting at least 2, possibly 3 greenhouses so that we really kind of turn this into a big project. We've actually...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Sorry.
we are looking at the clock too.
Sorry.
I understand what you are proposing, and I get it, and that is a need in our community. I just want to make sure people can access it, because you could have all of this set up there, but if people cannot physically get there, it's not going to be successful in our community. And I just want to make sure that that's something that has been thought through by your organization.
We've realized that that's the challenge, and I don't have a definitive way to answer that question at the moment, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Blood?
Yes, thank you. Hi.
Oh, hi, sorry.
No, you're okay. I know there's many of us. So Feeding America's numbers, this 1 million, what will that, if you can, off the top of your head, because you pulled out a lot of good numbers, because I know when you spend 1 million, that's not like me going to the grocery store and spending 1 million. That's like going to the grocery store and spending
Yes.
a whole lot more. Can you kind of equate what that looks like, buying power for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it varies. There's not an absolute answer to that question, but for the most part, I can get food for about half, maybe even a little bit less than what anybody else can get, right? Now I'm going to get the off-brands. It's going to be, Jim Bob's corn or something like that, right? It's brands you've never necessarily heard of, but that's what we have access to get. Now, the problem we have is food's really hard to get right now.
Yes.
So, I can only get what's actually out there to be available. Right now, it's meats and things like that are really hard to get.
Okay.
And real expensive.
Okay, and then when organizations, as you had quoted, come to you and say, hey, we need to get these from you, they get to also experience those savings because they're getting them from you, which then you're passing that savings on to those who are running programs.
Yeah, the way it basically works is sort of 2 ways, right? We don't actually sell food to anybody, but we have what we call a shared maintenance fee, which averages about 6 cents a pound. It's really for our transportation and all of that. So most of the food that we get, and we buy ourselves, is we get out, and there's some different rates, but it averages at about 6 cents a pound. Now, there are some exceptions in some places that say, I want some very specific food that we just don't have access to. So we will actually, like if Ta was an example and said, I wanted something very specific we just don't have, then what I could do for her, and we do this in a lot of places, is we'll use our buying power, and we will charge her exactly what it costs us to be able to get it. But we'll do that sometimes too.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll next move to Southwest Michigan Community Impact Association. Are there any questions? Any questions? Reverend, thank you very much. Next item is United Way. Any questions of the United Way? Thank you very much.
Mayor?
Yes. I'm sorry, Commissioner
I have
Wilson.
one quick question. Hi, Alyssa. Could you just share with us how folks know about and access these resources?
Absolutely. Hi, Alyssa Stewart. I'm with United Way of the Battle Creek and Kalamazoo region. Thank you for the question, Commissioner. So that actually, it would occur via a grant process. So as United Way, we're well-known and have the infrastructure to do grant processes. We've been doing several for 100 years, but even more recently in response to COVID. And so we would essentially put out broad communication to our network of partners and just community-wide that these healthcare-focused funds were available. So it would really just be that broad communication. We would likely create some parameters to ensure that these resources were made most available to smaller nonprofit organizations who we know have less resources to provide competitive or any health benefits at all to their employees.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you. My concern is the funding, would that stay in Calhoun County? Because I know you're collective now.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yes.
we are. As of April 1, we will
Yes.
merge and be a larger United Way, but absolutely. So we merged 10 years ago, actually, between even Battle Creek and Kalamazoo. So we have a long track record of localized funding, even though we're a regional organization. So absolutely, we're currently administering ARPA funds in the city of Kalamazoo. So we are similarly concentrating and focusing those funds in the city of Kalamazoo, and so we would do the exact same thing here. We'd be focused on getting these resources out to nonprofit workers in the city of Kalamazoo and nonprofits serving folks in the city, city of Battle Creek, sorry, with
Thank
these
you.
dollars. Yep, so would be focused here.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Sophia, did you? No?
He asked my question for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next organization, the Voices. Any questions? Commissioner Sophia.
Thank you. So I appreciate I appreciate this proposal and the vision that you have. A couple of questions. So first of all, the description of the other expenses, you've got $1.5 million in other expenses, and I was curious about that. And then, just kind of stepping back, I'm familiar with other groups and organizations that, thought that it was going to be great. They were getting a house, they had a structure, and it was theirs, and they ended up ruining the day that they ever got that structure because there were so many costs associated with the upkeep and maintenance and everything else. So, I mean, is this, I hate to use the word sustainable, but I mean, have you factored all of those expenses in moving forward?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Commissioners. Thanks for entertaining this one. My board chair, Rosario Uribe, Jose Orozco, the ED of Voices. And yes, originally, the ask was going to be much smaller. And as we started putting some numbers together and looking at how much it was going to cost over the next couple of years, that's what you're seeing there in year 1 and year 2. The other on the bottom explains the purchasing price and the renovation.
I found it. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then
I'm an idiot.
Yeah, and just continuing. So, yep, it's $2 million. And I'll be real transparent. When I put this out, I had a couple of people laughing at me. That encouraged me even more because we've partnered with the city of Battle Creek since I've been here, and before I got here, it was happening. So this is not giving Voices $2 million. This is investing $262.50 into each Latinx resident in the city of Battle Creek.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. All right, Rebecca, we have, I believe, 6 more organizations to go through. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
All right, how do you foresee, how much more time will we need as an organization to finish our work?
Well, once we get through the applications, we can talk with the commission about if you want to advance to tallying scores, or you have another idea. The plan was to tally scores once we got through all the questions with the organizations.
Okay, good. Are you guys prepared to talk about the last 6? All right. Washington Heights United Methodist Church, are there any questions for Pastor French? Yes, Commissioner Morris?
I don't have a question, but I have to recuse myself as I'm the chair of the board for the Hub of Hope.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Washington Heights? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Reading through your proposal, this seems like a really small amount of money to do as much as you would like to accomplish. I know that you are reaching out and asking of other organizations as well, and I'm just wondering how that's going and if you foresee additional costs after this process.
Hi, my name is Monique French. I'm the pastor and director of Washington Heights United Methodist Church. We have reached out to other partnering agencies in the community. We're currently in the vetting process with the Battle Creek Community Foundation, who has hired Gingras Global to be a wraparound service to work with us through this process. And how we we wanted to start small so you can see the impact that we have and how beneficial this project is. And those funds, we will take those funds that we get from the property sales and recycle those funds and spread abroad.
Any other questions?
I guess I wasn't factoring in the property sales when I was looking at it. I thought it would just be setting someone up in a household. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you, Pastor French. What to do theaters, or any questions of what to do? Commissioner Sophia? No? Okay. No questions for what to do. All right, very good. Workforce Development Institute? Any questions for this organization? Commissioner Wilson.
Hi. Thank you for being here. If you could introduce yourself after the question. I'm curious how you're working with local workforce development entities to implement this project.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. I'm Colleen Sullivan. I'm the Development Director at Workforce Development Institute. And actually, Sam is my coworker here, who is the manager, if you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'm Sam Doherty. I'm Director of Southwest Michigan Operations here, and also contractor with Michigan Works Southwest.
So we're directly connected already in this community with the workforce development system here through Michigan Works.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
And Rebecca, I
Goes
should...
to alternatives. Alternatives at Battle Creek would be the next one.
Thank you very
Mayor.
much. I appreciate it. Any questions of alternatives, Battle Creek? I am not seeing any. Next item, or Project 30, Star Commonwealth. We have a couple questions, Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Morris.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for being here tonight. This is a pretty inspiring proposal. I want to thank you for what it took to put all the effort into thinking about not only the impact that this is having on our youth currently and middle schoolers specifically, but the long-term ramifications on our community. And I'm curious if you could tell us what your plan is for sharing what you're going to learn, since this is a pilot that could benefit other communities, because I know that this is specific to Battle Creek and it's a partnership with the Y. So it's pretty, I feel like we're pretty honored to have that here, but just how do you plan on learning that, or sharing that learning?
Wonderful, thank you. I'm Elizabeth Carey, President and CEO at Star Commonwealth, and I've got Randy Davis with me. Go ahead.
I'm Randy Davis. I'm the management consultant for Star Commonwealth.
Thank you for the question. We actually do intend for this to serve children right here in Calhoun County, middle schoolers. And our intention is to do the research and evaluation while we're running the program to really prove that this has an impact on their mental health and well-being, but also long-term that they are more successful in high school because they had the opportunity to have some interventions at the middle school level. And our intention then is to share that with other communities in Michigan, as well as we work all across the country these days and have programs that we're doing in partnership with schools in about 20 other states right now. So it's a delight to be able to do this in our local community and then to be able to show the world what this really takes to make sure that our kids can be successful.
I'd like to add also our partnership with the Battle Creek Family Y has they're not all directly associated across the country, but they share best practices and best programs. And we're very excited about using that platform as well to share these models as we get success through it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other commission questions? Commissioner Morris.
Thank you for the proposal. It was very detailed, but I did have one question. I was wondering if you could speak more specifically to the updates on the Y.
Yes, absolutely. So our partnership is with the Battle Creek Family YMCA, and the request to the City Commission is for capital upgrades. They need an HVAC upgrade for the place that we'll be using, so we're talking about very specific place within the Y right now. We also need to do some repairs and prepare the space. You'll notice it's a 3-year ask because we intend for the program to grow, and there will be additional capital expenses that will be necessary, and they're all invested at the YMCA's current building.
Thank you.
Any other commission questions? Commissioner Blood.
Thank you. How, just because I didn't read it in here, how would students be engaged in getting to and participating in this program? And second part of that is it says Battle Creek area schools. Do you have support from all 4 or just specific ones?
Good question, thank you. The partnership and collaboration is really unprecedented. So we have Star Commonwealth, we have Summit Point, and both of them are working with us on social emotional learning and mental health issues that are cropping up with our children. We also have partnerships then with the YMCA, and then we have partnerships and signed MOUs currently in effect for the next 3 years with Harper Creek, Lakeview, Battle Creek Public Schools, and Marshall Albion Public Schools. We're also looking to expand that as we get the pilot started coming up here in March. And so how they get to and from, all the districts are committed to taking care of it by transportation, school transportation. There's going to be a split day. So 5th and 6th graders will go in the morning time session, and 7th and 8th graders will go in the afternoon session.
And based on your answer, that sounds as though this will be something that will be available during the school day to students. And how might you identify students that need those services and then network with families with those students?
Absolutely. So we'll be working with the structure that each of the districts have in regards to trauma-informed interventions and so forth, along with their counselors and their administrators and teachers. Star Commonwealth will have a team that will help coach through that process about best identifying kids with underlying trauma, challenges with social emotional learning, as well as mental health issues. It will be a volunteer participation with the family agreeing to it cooperatively, as well as the student. And this is behavioral health and behavioral intervention, but it's not all around that. It's about underlying trauma that we can help address.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions for Star Commonwealth? Thank you very much. The one that we've been waiting for all night, Southwest Michigan Community Impact Pantry. Are there any commissioner questions for this organization? Thank you very much. Rebecca, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ted and I are going to tag team on this next portion. What we envisioned at this point, and this is, the prerogative of the commission, is to go through your rubric scores for each entity. We'll tally it on a master sheet, and then we'll share that information with the commissioners about next steps. Is that acceptable?
Is that something you'll be asking us to call out publicly here
Yes.
with people in the room?
Yes. It is considered a deliberation of a public body, and so it does need to happen in public. And even if we did this after the fact, all of those scores would need to be made public.
Commissioner Blood, are you okay with that, or?
I'm thinking about it.
All right, I understand. Vice Mayor?
Those that have recused themselves, were their scores excluded from this tally?
We
Or
will
they
be excluding those that have recused themselves, so they would not provide a score for that.
Thank you.
Are we, the requests that are made, the dollars, are we able to, I guess, reduce them ourselves?
Yes, yes, Commissioner Lance. It would be the commission, it would be up to the commission as to what dollar amount would be awarded. So for example, we finish all the tally and we take a look at, and I'm just, the top 10. But if you look at all of the dollars that were asked, we could only fund 6. So the commission could go back and say, okay, then we want to modify the amounts that are awarded so that either we fund more or, we're addressing some specific things within their proposals that we think, were a priority over others. So you do have the option to modify the request amount or approve the entire amount.
Are there any other comments at this time from the commission?
Vice Mayor Pierce. I just have one more comment. Would it be easier for us just to email you real quick our rubrics that are completed so that you can just tally it in Excel?
Well, that would, but I don't think that everyone has it in an electronic form either, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Also, how much time are we going to have to be able to, after obviously listening and processing, to go back through and look at some of these, because some questions were answered that may need some adjusting because we didn't understand, it wasn't provided.
I think I understand your question, and if there needed to be adjustments to your rubric score, you could do that at this particular time. And if you wanted to do that, we could take a break and allow you to complete your tallies, and then we could come back and record the scores.
Rebecca, it'd be a lot easier if we just had you make a recommendation on how these monies are spent. Would you be willing to do that?
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor Benke. I certainly do. I certainly have completed the rubric, but that would be to the prerogative of the commission.
Okay. It's up to this commission. How do you guys want to take a break and finish their rubric scores, or?
I wouldn't mind a 5-minute break. It would allow us to move our bodies and tally our scores differently, because there were a few that I scored that I didn't realize we were taking off of the list, so I need to do some adjustments.
How much time do we need? Commissioner Wilson, do you have 5-10 minutes?
Yeah.
Can we make it 10 or 15? Because I would like to look back through my rubric just to make sure that I've got everything the way that.
We could take a break till
That it should be.
7:30, Mayor.
Okay, let's do that.
All right, thank you.
I can do
You
the
know,
look-
John.
You know, I know some of these people are waiting, but I just don't want, we're dealing with lots of money. I don't want to.
I don't want to rush the most, like.
All right.
Okay, so who's going to suggest that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think she would agree. She's the one who brought it up to me.
Okay, we're now prepared to enter into some discussions. I've got a vibe that, would anyone like to make a recommendation of how we proceed from here, or what we're looking at? Commissioner Blood, did you want to say anything?
Thank you. So, I'm not sure how to say this eloquently or fluidly, but looking at this process, there's numbers assigned to the rubric. And sometimes when we look at numbers, we equate numbers to value. And I don't think that this forum, with all of these great community leaders, hearing numbers called out publicly is the best forum to have that process take place. Because every project, every person in here that's doing the work has a value. And I wouldn't want a number against a rubric to make someone feel a sort of way. So I personally feel very uncomfortable with reading these out publicly in this forum.
How do you recommend that we proceed then?
I think taking some time to complete these and take and digest everything that was added in addition to the supplemental, and finishing those out and supplying those to the city would be wonderful. Making those available to organizations, obviously, to see, and then coming back together, you know, and discussing further after doing that. But I am open to the group and other thought processes, because I'm only one of 9.
Thank you. Commissioner Benica?
Thank you, sir. I would just like to say that I do agree we need a little bit more time, because I feel like some of the responses and information that we received tonight has changed some of the way that I scored on my rubric. And just to be fair and equitable across the board, I would like to have just a little bit more time to go through and look at the individual requirements for those rubric values, so that the changes and the information we heard tonight, we can accurately reflect in the rubric. And I would like if we could come back as a group, not necessarily, I don't know how we would do.
You have to make a motion.
Is that it? So I would need to, what's the verbiage for that? I would need to make a motion that we
Table.
table this?
Go ahead.
A motion to postpone the scoring of the rubric.
Okay, does it
And
need to have a date attached?
Yeah, not later than a certain date.
Okay.
And before you make that motion, Commissioner, one of my biggest concerns is I agree with both of you. We need some time. There was some good information tonight. My biggest concern is, and there's no way getting around this, how I initially looked at these, I counted, well, if I'm at 6 organizations and now all these organizations took up the entire 8 million, I'm out in the cold on the remaining, you know, other organizations that I thought might be valuable. I mean, not valuable, that's the wrong word, but, you know, just also, you know, I'd like to help out. And so I don't know if there's any way to even do it without violating the Open Meetings Act, but if we could also figure out if we're able to reduce the money that we would allocate to any of these organizations. And again, I don't know how those type of deliberations work with the Open Meetings Act. That's my concern.
Commissioner Reynolds?
No, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Lance with that. we do need some time because some of the allotment is not going to be the full allotment of what was being asked in the proposal, so.
Okay, let's get a motion on the floor so that we can discuss it.
So I actually have one more question before that motion. Are we able to, like, submit our, once we looked at this, maybe give us 7 days, 5 or 7 days to look at this and readjust? Are we able to submit to you, like, a lesser amount if we feel that, so that we can meet somewhere in the middle? Like, if we say, oh, okay, we can't give you $1 million, but we'd like to support you for $500,000 or $600,000, can we submit that in an email to you? Or
May I
how would
respond?
how would that work?
May I respond, Mayor? Well, what we thought is you start with the rubric scores, and then you go and you see how far down, like I said before, how far down does the 8 million get you? Okay, it's only going to get you 6, but we see value of going further. So then what will we adjust in those? I think it would be more difficult to have each one of you give us individual amounts without knowing your cumulative tally. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because you kind of want to know where, when we take all of your scores and we put them in a master tally sheet, then you can kind of see where each program, each applicant program falls, and then you can determine how to fund them.
Yes, because there is $21,488,789.10 that is requested in this room.
Yes.
And there's $8 million.
That's correct.
Okay, we're going to go to Commissioner Sophia, and we still do not have a resolution.
So as a part of this resolution, to get to what Commissioner Herring and I think I've heard Commissioner Reynolds and Commissioner Lance discuss, was if we submit this, then we kind of know, so like if there is, and I understand assigning a value, but if someone scores like 10 points, they're probably not going to make it far enough up the list, even if we reduce allocations to these groups to get an allocation. So if maybe everybody submits and then you're able to say, these are the top 10, top 15, how do you want to proceed with that? Would that be acceptable to the group? Yeah.
I believe we have consensus on that.
Okay.
Yes.
We still do not have a motion or a resolution.
I was waiting patiently. So, well,
Yeah, so what I would suggest is a motion to postpone, and with the date certain for when to have their rubric scores, which would certainly all, to submit to the city manager, which would all be available by, they would all be made public. And then it sounds like you need another workshop set to then, once you have those scores, then talk about what the allocations would be.
okay, so do we as a commission feel, is 7 days enough?
Okay, just before you do that, I just have a question for Jill. So when you talk about this next workshop, at that point, will we have a true allocation for what we're going to provide?
What you'd have was the master tally sheet that showed the rankings of all of the programs.
Okay.
And all of the dollar amounts requested, and then at the workshop, we'd go through what is being proposed to be funded.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
So as not to propose, or to postpone this too long, would it be feasible for us to do a workshop prior to the commission meeting on Tuesday? So if we met just before that?
I have prior engagements. I have another meeting Tuesday before our city
Okay,
commission.
sorry. I just thought we could, because I know that we keep holding off, and there are people that are really, this is important and we need to get to it. And I know we'll have to vote on it. And so I'm just concerned that we're not putting it off another meeting.
Can
And
we
that's-
do it the first of the next commission meeting, which would be March 1st, correct? And have the workshop before March, or in the week before March 1st, so that we can go through our rubric and our proposed funding, and then put it on the agenda for March 1st. Is that feasible?
You could hold a special meeting, and then you
Special
could
meeting.
make those particular decisions at a special meeting of the commission,
In the last week of February?
whatever the commission feels is the right timing to have all of that done. We would just need to have all of the rubric scores from all of you so that we can get you that master tally sheet, so that when you have that special meeting, you know where that is and you can determine funding.
How about over here? Are there any?
I was just going to say that that makes sense to me. Like, we would postpone this, have the scores tallied going into a workshop. At the workshop, we'll discuss allocation of funds, come up with some sort of final answer, and then we would hold a special meeting upon which we would vote on the allocation of funds. Is that the timeline that I'm hearing?
I didn't think that we needed a workshop and a special meeting. I had envisioned a special meeting.
Okay.
Because by then, let's just say it's the last of February, we would have gotten all of your rubric scores, put them in a master tally, and you have that.
And I guess I just phrased it that way because at a workshop, it's more free-flowing. And so it could even be like workshop until 7, and then at 7:15, special meeting to vote, or something. I don't know. How would that
Well,
work?
if the special meeting was only on this topic, you can
Just have it
those
as one.
free-flowing discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bonica, are you moving?
Are we ready for that now?
I would like to get it so we can discuss it.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to postpone the rubric submittal for 7 days? For 7 days, and submit those our final rubrics as a commission to the city manager's office within 7 days.
Commissioner Reynolds supports.
All right, so we have a motion now. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Sophia.
So does that motion need to be amended to include all of the other stuff that we've talked about? City Attorney Steele? Because I think the motion is to table, is that correct?
Postpone.
Postpone.
Yeah, I think, there's another process in the ordinance for setting a special meeting. I believe the mayor can do that, so I'm not sure that you even need to have a motion about setting a special meeting, but so we can just, because we're going to have to do some figuring of what's available.
As long as that doesn't need to be added, the motion is fine as it stands then.
Commissioner Wilson.
I don't know if this isn't specific to that. I just want to acknowledge that this has been a lot of work and a lot of effort that has gotten us to this point. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness that the commission is taking and making these really critical decisions. And I want to thank the folks that showed up tonight for their patience and really honoring that we want to get this right. We know that this is an art, not a science. And so just I'm in support, and I don't want to really add anything that changes it, but I'm grateful to everybody on this commission for being as thoughtful as you are.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I know the rest of the commission also agrees with you there. Commissioner Bennica?
And I would just like to thank everyone for their hard work. Like, this $8 million is detrimental to our community. Like, and I know you all are working your butts off, and we appreciate that because it makes a difference in Battle Creek. And that's all we want to do is do right by the community of Battle Creek. So I thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner Hennon. Any other comments over here? Are we prepared to vote? All right. Vicki, can you call the roll?
Yes, I can. Commissioner Blood?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ferris?
Yes.
Commissioner Herring?
Yes.
Commissioner Lance?
Yes.
Mayor Benke?
Yes.
Commissioner Morris?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Sophia?
Yes.
And Commissioner Zenda Wilson?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Resolution has been approved. Next, Rebecca?
Public comment? No, we already had.
We've already had public comment.
Yes, so with that decision and that motion, there is nothing left to
All
discuss
right.
at the workshop.
I just wanted to make sure that you didn't want to say anything to us.
No, we look forward to getting your rubrics. We will tally them very quickly.
Very good.
And make sure we get the tally sheet to you.
Sir, before,
Yes.
may I ask? So those rubrics, when you get them, Rebecca, they will be tallied and given out to us and made available to the community at the same time? Or,
They'll probably, depending on when we get them and how long it takes us to tally them, we'll make sure that it's public as soon as we can. But it probably won't be posted on our website until after the special meeting of the commission.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sophia.
And at this next meeting/workshop, if we're going to be having conversations about cutting the requests, does it make sense to invite everyone back? Everyone that's here?
To be here.
If they'd like to be
It does
here?
make sense, yes.
I want to say thank you to everyone. I know this has been a long process, and we still have more work to do. If you do have any questions, feel free to speak to the city manager, and she will do her best to get back to you with answers. Thank you to the public for being here tonight and seeing our government in process and how we make decisions representative of the people of our community. Thank you very much, and this meeting is adjourned.